Plant care can feel really overwhelming, whether you are new to plants and figuring out what you need to do and when, or even if you have a well-established routine and competent in knowing what you need to do. Either stage of your journey can feel overwhelming and sometimes confusing because there's such a lot of information out there. Over the years, I've learned that there are certain things that I need to ditch and stop doing when it comes to plant care. These things help my plants, but they also help me as I navigate through my houseplant journey. In this video, I'm going to be sharing 8 things that I have ditched over the years to help me, but to also help my plants. So let's get going. One of the things that I quit with my houseplant routine is overwatering. I used to overwater when I lived in South Africa, and all these lovely plants used to grow outside in their natural habitat around me. I never had to care for them because nature did that for me. When I moved to the UK and brought all these plants into my space, I had to learn very quickly how to care for them, and watering was one of the things I had to learn about. I overwatered, but I quickly realised that I need to stop doing that because it was killing my plants. So now I wait for my plants to tell me when they need a drink. This Syndapsis, for example, I wait for it to tell me because the leaves are curled in and the plant is slightly droopy. So that's my cue to water. Very similar to many other plants that I have. The leaves can droop a little bit. The leaves can curl in, but as soon as I give it a drink, the plant just plumps up and it almost comes back to life. Whereas if I overwater this plant, the roots will rot, which will kill the plant. And it's so difficult to go back to rescuing that plant and, saving those roots if they have root rot. So the first thing that I have ditched and the first thing that I have quit in my houseplant routine is overwatering. Wait for your plants to tell you when to water. Of course, if we wait for too long, then the plant will also die because it doesn't get any water. So it's about finding that balance, and it's about trial and error. But if you think you are an overwaterer, try underwatering first and just see. You very quickly get into that routine of being an underwaterer and spotting the signs that your plant needs a drink. Try it out and let me know how you get on. The second thing that I have decided to quit and stop stressing about is yellowing leaves and stems. We all have plants with yellowing leaves. This beautiful anthurium is one of them, and you don't always see it in my videos, but it's tucked in the corner. But I can guarantee that I have many other plants with yellowing tips and stems and leaves. This plant needs my attention, and I will repot it soon and give it a better pot. But when plants are in their natural habitat, they have a natural fertilizer around them. They've got bugs crawling around, decomposed leaves that fertilize them naturally. They've got rainwater. They've got their natural habitat. They've got all their buddies around them in nature, and they look happy and healthy. Whereas if they come into our space, we have central heating, radiators, tap water, which depending on where you live, tap water can be hard when you water. So, and we're learning how to care for them. So it's just natural that plants are going to have brown stems and tips and yellowing leaves. And sometimes it's just part of the natural growing process for them. So to make sure I enjoy my plants as much as I possibly can, I've stopped worrying about all of these brown things that appear. I can simply cut them off, I can repot, I can do something about it because I just want to make sure that I enjoy my plants and not stress over any brownness that might appear. Just looking at this plant, with every brown tip is a brand new leaf. There's brand new growth coming up here with this lovely anthurium. I don't know if you can see this lovely leaf here. So every cloud has a silver lining. So with every brown tip, it's not all gone. There is some new life coming through. The third thing that I have quit and decided not to do is to repot every single year. The recommended time to repot your plants is every year. Doesn't Does anyone actually do that? I've got so many plants, and if I have to repot them all every year, I will spend the whole year repotting. So I'd love to know, do you repot all of your plants every year? Because that's the recommended frequency to do that for. I have had this plant that I bought, I think it was £5. I got this lovely Hoya from a lady who was in my local village, and she was selling cuttings of Hoya. It wasn't this big, it was much smaller, but I think it was 4 years ago, and this plant is still in the same soil. I'm ashamed to say, but it is, and it's growing, and I keep trailing it around, and yes, it needs fresh soil, but I'm not stressing myself over if I haven't repotted it yet. So one thing that I have stopped and quit doing is to stress if I haven't repotted my plants every 12 months. Of course, the nutrients in the soil can run out because if a plant is in a pot for such a length of time, the nutrients in the soil can run out, and it's our job to top up those nutrients to make sure that the plant can grow. I top up my plant's nutrients, yes, by repotting. If a plant needs to be repotted, if it's root bound, or if it's struggling to grow, of course I would repot it. But I also use a liquid fertilizer to fertilize my plants, to top up on those nutrients that they're lacking from being outside of their natural habitat and in our home. So I don't repot every year. I simply don't have the time to repot all of these lovely plants every single year. I repot when I have the time and when a plant is struggling, when the growth is stunted, when it's completely root bound. But generally, I do not repot every year, and I don't stress over it. Something that I used to do in the beginning when I started my houseplant journey was to compare my plants and my collection to what is out there on the internet. There are some beautiful houseplant accounts and houseplant spaces and rooms all over the internet, and I can get a little bit lost scrolling and looking through all of these beautiful spaces, and rightly so, because people work really hard to create those spaces and to keep their plants happy and healthy. One thing that I've stopped doing is to compare my space, my plants, the varieties that I have, to what everybody else has on the internet. I create a space that I love spending time in, and I don't really mind what varieties of plants I have in my space. If I have 4 of the same plant, that is okay to me, because I just love having greenery around me. For example, my euphorbias, if you've seen my other videos before, I absolutely love euphorbia, and this is one of 6. This is one of my 7 euphorbias that I have, all of different sizes, they're all different shapes, some have different tinted of colours, and they're just lovely and beautiful to have around. So I don't mind if I have the same variety of a plant, because my main mission and my main aim is simply to create a green space around me. So I find comparing myself and my plants quite stressful. So I've very quickly learned just to focus on what I have and to enjoy my plants, and I'm doing pretty well with my collection. I've created a beautiful plant room that I absolutely love. So if you find yourself comparing yourself to others, then perhaps just try and focus on your own plants, and just know that in all of these perfect plant spaces that people have, I can guarantee that there is a plant or 2 or 10 that's not so healthy. You may just not see it on camera. Using the right soil for your plants is so important, and that's something that I've learned very early on in my houseplant journey. When I started off, I would just buy a multi-purpose compost, and I thought that any plant could thrive in any soil. I very quickly learned that for me personally, that didn't work, because the bags of soil that I find in shops, in garden centres, are really, really dense. So I've learned to mix my own soils together. So for my plants, like, you know, my tropical houseplants, monstera, even things like peace lily, my pile, begonia, syndapsis, pothos plants, I mix together a very nice chunky mix with some bark, for some humidity and drainage, some perlite for some extra drainage. I mix together worm castings, which is a natural fertilizer, and also some coco coir, which is the outer shell of a coconut because it aerates the soil. That mix works really well for me for my leafy plants. And when it comes to succulents and cacti, I use a peat-free soil, but I mix some extra grit, some horticultural grit or sand for extra drainage, and I also put a fertilizer in as well. So it's so important to ditch the mainstream soils that doesn't have the added nutrients, the added grit, added properties for humidity, because the right soil can really save your plants. So if you still use the mainstream soils and the huge bags and you find your plants are slightly unhappy, it could be because of the soil. If you have any questions about soil, I love talking about soil, so drop them in the comments below. But ditch the mainstream soil bags that's perhaps not quite right for your plants, and if you can, mix your own soils together. There are also some great pre-made soil packs available for particular houseplants, so have a look out for that as well. But the soil for your plants is so important to get it right. The next one is not something that I have done anyways, but I thought it's worth a mention, and that is not chasing the rare and unusual plants. It's not something I have ever done because I am quite happy having your traditional everyday houseplants such as begonia, pile, pothos, monstera, deliciosa, you know, all the traditional ones that we tend to have in our plants. I've never been one to chase after the rare, unusual plants. I have got a lovely variegated monstera in my plant room. If you've seen some of my videos before, you will know that I bought a one leaf unrooted cutting about 4 years ago, and that plant has now grown to hit the ceiling. So that's a bit of a rare, unusual find. Also, this roadkill cactus, I would say, is a little bit unusual. I bought it this year because I went to BBC Gardeners World live with a couple of friends, and I thought, it's a bit unusual, it's not something I have in my collection, so this is one plant that I invested a bit of money in to buy in my for my plant room. But generally, I am just quite happy to bring any form of greenery in the form of a house plant into my space, because plants and well-being and mental health is so important to me. I want to create a space that's green. I want to create a space that has plants in that are easy to care for. I don't want to stress over, you know, unusual, very rare, difficult to care for plants, because that's not my main aim and my mission, to have plants in my space. So I feel much more relaxed knowing that I don't have to worry about very rare and unusual plants. I tend to only find plants that I kind of know about, that I have grown up around, and it just doesn't stress me out because I know how to care for them. So don't chase rare, unusual plants if you don't feel the need to. If you just want to create a green space around you, have 4 pothos in your space or 4 monstera in your space. It will just be as beautiful as any other plant that you have in your collection. Spending a lot of money on plants is not something that I really have done in the past, and I really stick by that because, for 2 reasons. I don't want to spend a lot of money on plants, but also if I do spend a lot of money on a plant, I don't want to worry and stress that I could potentially kill that plant and my money is wasted. I bought one leaf, this particular one. Oh gosh, that's hit the ceiling. I bought this particular leaf as a one leaf unrooted cutting. It had a node, I stuck it in some water and the plant grew some roots and it's now hit the ceiling. I've recently taken some cuttings and I'm really, really pleased with this plant. Generally, I wouldn't spend an awful lot of money on plants. I certainly won't be buying a huge variegated monstera like this because I know they can cost a lot of money. So I have ditched the tendency to want to spend a lot of money on plants. For me, I am quite happy to grab a cutting from somewhere. If I go into a garden centre and there's a cutting on a floor of a plant that I don't have, I always ask if I can have it and take it home and grow my plants from cuttings. I go to plant swaps, I swap with friends, and I love creating my collection and growing my collection that way. So don't feel you need to spend a lot of money on plants. By all means, if you want to splash out, then go for it. But don't feel that there is a constant need to have to spend an awful lot of money because I know plants can be really expensive. I've created my beautiful plant room by not spending a lot of money. This one leaf I think cost me £40, and this roadkill cactus that I've shown you earlier I think was about £65, but that is my maximum and it certainly doesn't happen very often. So don't feel the need to spend a lot of money. You can still create your sanctuary, your green plant room around you without spending a lot of money. The last one is ditching DIY hacks that might be circulating around on the internet. I know there are lots of hacks such as cleaning your plant leaves with milk or olive oil. There are many of these hacks around. And when I first started houseplant care many years ago, I may have used a banana peel to clean my leaf with. But I very quickly realised that it's just not doing the plant any favours. It clogs the pores of the plant. It could attract pests. So it's best just not to use any form of milk or olive oil or banana peel anywhere near your plants because it could also attract some bacteria, some fungus gnats, which are these little flies flying around. The best thing to do to clean your plant leaves is by simply using a damp kitchen towel that's clean, a microfiber cloth or glove. You don't need to use milk on your leaves or olive oil or any of those materials because it's just not natural. These plants don't have those properties in their natural habitat, so we shouldn't introduce it when they're in our space either. Just use a natural clean wet cloth to clean your leaves and you'll see your leaves are super shiny after a good clean. I hope you found that helpful. I would love to hear if there's anything that you have ditched in your plant care journey that makes your life easier, but also that helps your plants thrive. Please drop them in the comments below. If you've got any questions about your houseplants, please also drop them below. I can chat about plants all day long. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye.